Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephania Cox. Here are today's top stories. Biden's pick for CIA director testifies before the Senate. He called the Chinese regime an authoritarian adversary. If confirmed, will he stand up to the regime's predatory nature? It's customary for the president to have sole authority to launch nuclear weapons. But a number of Democrats don't want President Biden to have this power. They give a few suggestions as to how he can share the power. New statistics show online child exploitation at an all-time high. And by spending more time on computers during lockdowns, children are at risk now more than ever. The FDA may approve the first ever CCP virus one-shot vaccine. But how effective is it compared to the others? And a lack of working technical support, professional instruction, and safety requirements. Mike Pompeo is highlighting biosafety negligence at the controversial Wuhan Institute of Virology. President Biden signs another executive order. It reviews supply chains to address shortcomings and aims to reduce reliance on other countries. NTD's Christina Kim has those details.
After a bipartisan meeting with lawmakers, President Biden signed an executive order on Wednesday to review the vulnerabilities of the American supply chain. Vice President Kamala Harris was also in the room.
So the American people are prepared to withstand any crisis and rely on ourselves. This is about making sure the United States can meet every challenge we face in this new era. Pandemics, but also in defense, cybersecurity, climate change, and so much more.
He mentioned the PPE shortages during the pandemic.
That should have never happened, and this will never happen again in the United States, period. We shouldn't have to rely on a foreign country, especially one that doesn't share our interests or our values, in order to protect and provide our people during a national emergency.
The executive order will set up a 100-day review of supply chains in 4 product areas: computer chips, large capacity batteries, pharmaceuticals, and critical minerals like rare earth material. The order will also issue a 1-year review of 6 key sectors.
To be focused on defense, public health and biological preparedness, information and communications technology, transportation, energy, and food production.
Harrell says the reviews will be modeled after the process the Defense Department uses, and says taking a comprehensive approach will help address gaps in the supply chain. Harrell assured the public that the administration will take action after reviewing the reports. The deputy director of the National Economic Council says this order will make America more prepared to respond to challenges.
They're going to review risks in supply chains and in our domestic industrial base. They're going to think broadly about risk. There's climate risk and geopolitical risk, but there's also risk in not having enough workers ready to meet the needs of that sector, or enough factories or the right equipment.
She says the answer isn't to simply ramp up domestic production, because the vulnerability affects not just Americans, but others globally too. Biden says this will help create more domestic manufacturing and will partner with industry leaders, academia, and more to address supply shortages. Christina Kim, NTD News.
President Biden's nominee for the CIA is calling the Chinese regime an authoritarian adversary. William Burns testified to the Senate, saying that U.S. national security requires countering China's predatory leadership. NTD's Kevin Hogan brings us more.
Mr. Burns.
Biden's pick to head the CIA, William Burns, spoke to the Senate Intel Committee on Wednesday. He called the Chinese regime a formidable authoritarian adversary that is strengthening its ability to do several heinous things. Here's Burns.
There are, however, a growing number of areas in which Xi's China is a formidable authoritarian adversary, methodically strengthening its capabilities to steal intellectual property, repress its own people, bully its neighbors, expand its global reach, and build influence in American society.
Burns worked as a U.S. diplomat for 33 years. He's been an ambassador to Jordan and Russia, and he's held 3 senior positions at the State Department. Now he is president of an international foreign affairs think tank. Senator Marco Rubio pressed Burns on it.
This group that you partner with, the China-United States Exchange Foundation, a congressionally appointed commission in August of 2018 said that they showed a clear intent to influence policy towards China in the United States. So given your stated concerns about Chinese soft power influence efforts, why, while you were at the helm, did Carnegie Endowment for International Peace establish a relationship with and accept funding from this group, this China-United States Exchange Foundation?
Here's how Burns, whom the Senate's already confirmed for various roles 5 times now, responded.
On the China-U.S. Exchange Foundation, this is a relationship that I inherited when I became president of Carnegie and that I ended not long after I became president, precisely for the concerns that you just described, because we were increasingly worried about the expansion of Chinese influence operations.
Burns said if he's confirmed, 4 priorities will shape his approach to leading the nation's preeminent spy agency. Those are China, technology, people, and partnerships. The nominee said outcompeting China is key to U.S. national security in the years ahead, and he said that will require a long-term, clear-eyed, bipartisan strategy underpinned by domestic renewal and solid intelligence. Burns received bipartisan support from the lawmakers on the committee. It seems he is set to be confirmed as the first lifelong diplomat to be the director of the CIA. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
31 Democrats are calling for President Biden to relinquish his sole power to launch nuclear weapons, a power typically given to presidents alone. Dems are now asking Biden to introduce checks and balances. They claim that giving one person sole authority to control nuclear forces is a real risk. Democrats say this is because presidents have threatened nuclear attacks. The representatives want to have others, like the House Speaker or Vice President, agree with the decision before a nuclear attack takes place. Other suggestions include creating a council, getting permission from Congress, or a certificate from the Secretary of Defense before authorizing the use of nuclear weapons. And a gun rights group asked President Biden to rethink his gun control plan. It wants him to protect law-abiding gun owners instead of punishing them. Here are the details.
The U.S. Concealed Carry Association says President Biden's gun control plan would criminalize about 105 million law-abiding gun owners. The group's president writes, "While we can agree that there are several common sense and long overdue changes needed to our nation's gun laws, we firmly believe that the path forward should be focused on supporting and protecting responsible, law-abiding Americans, not criminalizing and punishing them." He criticized Biden for using last week's anniversary of the Parkland shooting to call for more gun control. He said it wouldn't have helped because the shooter did pass a background check. He also notes that a record number of Americans have been buying guns. He says, "Women and minorities are now leading the way as the fastest growing groups of concealed carry permit holders in the country." Last month, the FBI said it processed a record 39.7 million firearm background checks in 2020. That beat the previous record of 10 million. Earlier this month, Biden said he'd push Congress to enact more gun control measures. White House officials have also said Biden would take on the largest gun rights group, the National Rifle Association. The Concealed Carry Group says responsible gun owners don't need more taxes or restrictions. Instead, it wants concealed carry permit holders to be able to carry across the country.
The FDA may soon give Johnson & Johnson's vaccine a pass. Anyone getting this vaccine will only need to get 1 shot, not 2. NTD's Miguel Moreno has that story and a bird's-eye view on the virus.
Johnson & Johnson's made tear-free shampoo, Band-Aids, and now it looks like they'll soon pump out a 1-shot vaccine. The FDA says it's safe, but the approval process is still underway. Biden's team says they'll roll out the vaccine as soon as they get the go-ahead.
While we await the FDA's decision, we want the American people to know that we're doing the work so that if the EUA is granted, we will waste no time getting this life-saving vaccine into the arms of Americans.
So how safe is the 1-shot compared to the others? Based on FDA data, not as good. Here are the numbers. It's 85% effective against severe disease, 66% effective against moderate to severe disease. The CDC says the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines are 94-95% effective. We'll see when and if the FDA gives the Johnson & Johnson shot a pass. Now, the virus affects people differently. You could recover quickly, feel nothing, or have a really bad time. But Dr. Fauci on Wednesday went over long-term symptoms, symptoms that could drag out for nearly a year. He cited a study done by the University of Washington.
That approximately 30% of the patients who were enrolled at the University of Washington reported persistent symptoms for as long as 9 months after illness. Fatigue was the most common reported symptom.
He says the NIH and the CDC are trying to find out why this happens to some and not others. Finally, let's take a look at the trends. While deaths, new cases, and hospital admissions are far lower than they were in January, the COVID tracking project is showing slight increases. The 7-day death average went up a bit from yesterday's number by over 100. And cases also look like they're going flat, no longer falling. But the hospitalization rate continues its descent. Back to you, Steph.
Thanks, Miguel. Mike Pompeo is calling attention to the Chinese regime's poor biosafety record. He points to negligence at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. More on that by NTD's Allison Lee.
Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and his senior China policy advisor Miles Yu are demanding that the Chinese Communist Party take biosafety seriously. They also call on the international community to hold the CCP accountable if it fails to uphold global biosafety standards. In an opinion piece published in the Wall Street Journal this Tuesday, Pompeo and Yu argue the CCP's negligence on biosafety is putting the world at risk. They say, quote, most signs point to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, or WIV, as the source of COVID-19. They quote then director of WIV's warning in 2018 that the biosafety laboratory is a double-edged sword. It can be used for the benefit of humanity, but can also lead to a disaster. The then director also acknowledged China's biology labs lack operational technical support, professional instructions, and feasible standards for safety requirements. Pompeo and Yu also highlight that a 2016 safety survey conducted by the Chinese Ministry of Science and Technology on 75 bioresearch labs in China finds that WIV didn't even make it to the top 20 in terms of quality. Pompeo and Yu also say the State Department confirmed last month that the WIV conducts secret bioweapons research with the People's Liberation Army, or PLA. They say this is why the PLA sent a general to take over WIV soon after the outbreak in Wuhan. They say the world has a responsibility to make sure the CCP is not given a free pass on biosafety. Reporting by Allison Lee, NTD News.
Children are at risk from predators now more than ever. New statistics show online child exploitation and enticement at an all-time high in 2020. NTD speaks with an expert about how you can keep your child safe online.
The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reports that 2020 was a record-breaking year, but for all the wrong reasons. The center reports online child enticement increased over 97% in 2020 from the year prior. This is when someone communicates with a child with the intent to commit a sexual offense or abduction. The center received 21.7 million reports of suspected child exploitation. This is the highest number of reports ever received in 1 year. And they say this is largely due to COVID lockdowns. The founder of a nonprofit dedicated to combating child sex trafficking says they've also seen a rise in child exploitation.
The current state of the crime in our country is at the highest peak it's ever been. COVID was not favorable to this crime. More kids spend more time online. Most of the predators approach their victims or potential victims online today. There's a direct connection between the predator and the victim.
Apps such as TikTok, video games like Fortnite, and social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube provide a huge online hunting ground for sexual predators. Experts in law enforcement say that what might start out as seemingly harmless chatting between strangers online can lead to extortion, abduction, and even human trafficking. Sextortion is when a child is groomed to take sexually explicit images of themselves. And when they do, offenders use that as blackmail to get more sexual content or coerce the child into sexual activity. Boyan says children are exploited in every town and zip code. And while non-government agencies in the U.S. say the average age of a victim is 11 to 14 years old, any age child that goes online is at risk. Boyan says for parents to keep their kids safe online, they must get seriously involved in their child's online activity.
If your child sees it, you've got to see it. Dads, if your child plays that Xbox or PlayStation game, you've got to play it. If he plays in a live community, you've got to join that community. You have to know who has access to your child's ears, eyes, and life. Because if you don't, somebody is feeding information to that child, and unfortunately, predators they're more prevalent than ever before.
The center says the recent numbers make it clear there has never been a more important time to educate the children in your life about staying safe online. Both the center and Share Together's websites provide online resources for parents and children. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
A much larger child tax credit is making progress. It's part of President Biden's nearly $2 trillion virus spending package.
Democrats want to increase the child tax credit from $2,000 per child to $3,000 for children up to 18 and $3,600 for children under 6. Tax expert Paul Miller says the one-year change would make it completely refundable and target families who make less money.
I think it's great. I think this is something that the government is recognizing that having children is an expensive obligation.
The tax credits would be delivered via monthly checks starting this July, so you wouldn't have to wait until the end of the year when you file taxes. Tax expert Morris Armstrong says if it's passed, it will be interesting to see how the IRS will implement it.
Because, of course, you have a bill being passed, and then the IRS has to implement it and write the rules and procedures. But I think for many people, it will be a welcome gift from the American taxpayer.
One report from Columbia University says it could help cut child poverty in half. Miller says he hopes it's not just for 2021.
It would be wonderful if they made it retroactive to 2020. That would be something that I would be hoping for the world. I really think that would be a great benefit for all of the taxpayers in America.
But the plan is expensive. It would cost the IRS about $400 million to turn it into reality. And it's facing pushback from some Republicans. The House is expected to vote on the bill Friday. If it passes, it will go to the Senate, and then Biden would need to sign it into law.
A major drug bust in Pharr, Texas. The Customs and Border Protection found a produce shipment from Mexico that allegedly smuggled in drugs too. Using an imaging system, officials discovered the shipment contained more than 300 packages of alleged methamphetamine that weighed nearly 600 pounds. That translates to $11.5 million worth of narcotics. Border Protection and the Office of Field Operations seized a tractor-trailer delivering the packages as well as the narcotics. The case is still being investigated. And a federal judge rules that the Biden administration cannot enforce a pause on most deportations until further notice. The case affects approximately 6,000 detainees. U.S. District Judge Drew Tipton agreed with a Texas request and temporarily stopped the Biden administration from placing a 100-day moratorium on deportations. Tipton was appointed during the Trump administration. Texas officials believed the Trump moratorium violates a previous agreement and that the Department of Homeland Security should not discourage the removal of illegal aliens. Judge Tipton agreed that Texas would incur financial costs from having to detain immigrants who otherwise would have been deported, and from an increase in unaccompanied children who would require public education. The judge's decision is a temporary one until either the case is resolved or another decision is issued. And top officials at the Texas electric grid resigned yesterday. They came under heavy fire after a massive failure of the state's power system left millions without light, heat, and water last week. Brian Wood reports.
Top leadership at Texas's electric grid operator resigned on Tuesday after they were blamed for rolling blackouts during last week's deadly winter storm. The board's chairman, vice chairman, and several directors were among those who stepped down from their roles at the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, or ERCOT, effective Wednesday, according to an official state notice. Their resignations came the same day ERCOT was hit with a proposed class action lawsuit by customers who claimed their power failed in freezing temperatures, leaving them without light, heat, and drinkable water. The lawsuit accuses ERCOT of failing to prepare the state's electric power grid for severe weather. Dozens of Texans died in last week's freezing temperatures, and the state has launched investigations into what caused electrical systems to shut down. State Governor Greg Abbott welcomed the resignations, noting ERCOT had assured it had adequate power ahead of the storm. In a statement, he said, "Investigations will uncover the full picture of what went wrong," and added he'll ensure it won't happen again. The Public Utility Commission of Texas, which appoints members onto the ERCOT board, declined immediate comment on when it would seek to replace those who resigned.
Golf champion Tiger Woods is awake. He was hospitalized in Los Angeles after a serious car accident. His car veered off a road and rolled down a steep hillside.
Tiger Woods' Twitter account posted a message saying Tiger is awake, conscious, and recovering in his hospital room. Deputy Carlos Gonzalez was the first to reach Woods at the scene of the crash.
I asked him what his name was. He told me his name was Tiger, and at that moment I immediately recognized him. I asked him if he knew where he was, what time of day, just to make sure he was oriented. He seemed as though he was lucid and calm.
The sheriff described what must have happened at the time of the accident.
No skid marks, no braking. So apparently the first contact was with the center median, and from there then crossed into the opposing lane of traffic, hit the curb, hit a tree, and there was several rollovers during that process.
Video footage shows Woods' dark gray Genesis SUV badly crumpled and badly damaged, its windows smashed. Woods was in town to host a golf tournament and then film a video with celebrities. He was filming just a day before the accident. Woods also recently had his 5th back surgery. He said he wasn't sure if he would be well enough for an upcoming tournament before the crash.
Up next, FEMA plans to open 100 vaccination sites across the country. The first 2 have opened their doors already, both in New York City, but neither in Manhattan. California's Disneyland unveils its plan to partially reopen next month after being closed almost a year. The iconic park says there will be a special event. More on that after the break.
If you're like me, and I think it's actually most of us, then you're getting really fed up with the nonsense going on inside the banking system. I mean, we've worked hard our entire lives to retire comfortably. We just recovered from the crash of 2008, and it seems like it's about to happen all over again. Look at the too-big-to-fail banks. They're only getting bigger as the Fed hands them trillions of dollars daily, while simple folks like you and me, we're only getting the short end of the stick. That's why I'm glad I found this book called The Bank Failure Survival Guide. Give us a call, and we'll send you a free copy with no obligations whatsoever, just one American to another, telling you about some options that you might not have considered. Call 866-239-2619 today for your free copy of the Bank Failure Survival Guide. That's 866-239-2619.
FEMA opened 2 vaccination centers in New York City today. They're the first of roughly 100 sites that are scheduled to be opened throughout the country. NTD's Arian Pazdar with the news from Brooklyn.
We're here in Brooklyn at New York State's largest vaccination site. They opened the doors this morning at 8 a.m. and as you can see, quite a number of people are showing up already. One of the main differences between this site and other sites is that you can actually do in-person appointments here, meaning you don't have to schedule before you come. In order to handle all the people, New York State deployed some Army personnel here. And on top of that, the MTA, New York City's transportation system, is enhancing its bus services to these sites in Queens and in Brooklyn. Around 3,000 people can get vaccinated at each site per day. The other is located in Queens. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, purposely places the sites in these parts of the city. In the first week, only people living in surrounding areas will get vaccinated.
The idea is to place it in neighborhoods where you have the highest risk to COVID.
People we spoke with approved of how the sites were being run.
The person, beautiful, no complaint. Everything is fine.
So far, it seems like everything is running quickly and smoothly.
The line looked long, but it's moving quickly.
The vaccination center in Brooklyn is scheduled to be open daily from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. for the next 8 weeks. People are asked to make appointments before arriving at the site if possible. Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
Also in New York, the MTA will open a vaccination site for its employees on Wednesday. They said in order to get the city going again, they need all of their staff vaccinated. And another national retailer is going under today. A popular electronics retailer is closing its remaining stores in California's Bay Area. Here's more from NTD's Eileen Ang.
After 36 years, Fry's Electronics will be permanently closing all of its stores. Starting February 24th, all stores will begin winding down regular operations. Fry's operates 31 stores across 9 states. It states that challenges during the pandemic and changes in the retail industry are reasons for its closure.
Been coming to Fry's for many, many years. It's just unfortunate to see the business closing up now.
It's one of the few places you can get stuff, like walk in.
The retail giant sold software, consumer electronics, household appliances, computer hardware, and other gadgets. Their stores were known for being decorated in a variety of themes, from the Industrial Revolution to Alice in Wonderland. Regular customers were disappointed upon finding the sudden notice. This Mayan-themed Fry's Electronics in San Jose is now officially closed. Customers who had their equipment being repaired here are asked to email customer service to schedule a time for pickup. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
Disneyland announced that part of California Adventure Park will reopen next month with a special event. This is the first time the theme park will be open to the public since last year's shutdown.
Disneyland will be hosting a mini opening next month. Theme park officials released the details on Wednesday. The event, named A Touch of Disney, will begin at California Adventure on March 18th with a limited capacity. It will offer a chance for Disney fans to shop at stores and enjoy eateries around Disneyland. Some Disney characters will also be featured in the event, but visitors won't be able to take selfies due to pandemic protocols. The admission ticket goes for $75, which includes parking and a dining card worth $25. Ticket sales start March 4th for select dates from March 18th through April 5th. The event marks the first time Disneyland will be open to the public since being closed down for almost a year. However, the main theme park will remain closed, meaning visitors wouldn't be able to go on any of the rides or other attractions. Reporting by Zach Lee, NTD News, Los Angeles.
A rare sight in one of the country's most iconic national parks. Right about now, deep in California's Yosemite, you could catch a glimpse of a glowing waterfall. NTD's David Lamb has more.
When the sunset hits just right, a waterfall in Yosemite National Park can glow a deep, bright orange, turning into what's called a firefall. It looks like lava flowing down the rock formation. This small waterfall, Horsetail Fall, flows over the eastern edge of El Capitan Rock. The National Park Service says it's a rare sight that happens for 2 weeks in mid to late February. They say this unique effect happens on evenings with a clear sky when the waterfall is flowing. Tourists flock to this area in recent years, and due to current health guidelines, reservations are required for entry. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
We're becoming more and more urban. We lose our connection with nature. This little girl lives in a world of natural beauty, nature all around her. Not everybody has this opportunity. Things are growing all around her. All sort of handmade things. The artist has portrayed a scene that is so comforting and so grounded that we can experience this ourselves. The artist himself has to be absolutely natural. And it's not easy to do because children are hard to paint. Birds are hard to paint. They don't sit still. This is quite an accomplishment, reflecting nature back to us. It's just a pure, natural painting.
You know nothing about China.
Man, this is getting really out of control.
You might never be able to go back to China.
I have to take that risk. If I don't do it, who will?
A group of senators say they'd bring back a bill to counter the Chinese regime's censorship in the U.S. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has the details.
A bipartisan group of senators will revive a bill this week aimed at countering Chinese censorship in the U.S. They say the CCP coerces U.S. companies into taking pro-Beijing stances. Democrat Senator Jeff Merkley is leading the effort. He says, quote, "We must monitor and address the impacts of China's censorship and intimidation of Americans and our companies, so we can create a strategy to safeguard this bedrock of freedom and hold those accountable who suppress and destroy it." The bill is co-sponsored by Republican Senators Marco Rubio and John Cornyn, as well as Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren. A similar bill was introduced in 2019, but it was eventually stalled. A Democrat aide close to the process says the initiative is designed to support U.S. companies facing pressure from the CCP. Former Attorney General William Barr said last year that Hollywood companies routinely cave in to pressure and censor films to appease the CCP. In 2019, NBA games were taken off the air in China. This came after a tweet from the Houston Rockets manager backing Hong Kong's pro-democracy protests. And in 2018, the CCP compelled global airlines and hotel chains to change references to Taiwan to imply that it is part of Communist China. The bill would direct the president to create a task force to monitor and address the CCP censorship or intimidation of Americans and U.S. companies. Though deeply divided on other issues, senators from both parties are finding some common ground in opposing the CCP.
When one of the UK's aircraft carriers is deployed to the South China Sea, what are the risks involved? At a recent Parliament hearing, China experts weigh in. NTD's Lorraine Ferrier has the story.
Experts warn of high risks of incidents when the UK's aircraft carrier HMS Queen Elizabeth is deployed to the South China Sea. They spoke on Tuesday at the Commons Defence Committee on China's military ambitions.
We shall see and should see sailings through the South China Sea just as the law of the sea allows. But I also think we're going to see more tension around them, and therefore a greater risk of an incident.
The aircraft carrier is scheduled to conduct its first operational mission as part of a freedom of navigation operation. An American destroyer will escort the HMS Queen Elizabeth alongside the UK's own destroyers, frigates, a submarine and a tanker.
So just the vast uptick in the types and the numbers of these exercises and normal drills, regular drills, as Beijing calls them, I think really increases the risk here of miscalculation, misunderstanding, misinterpretation.
She said this year there has already been 44 incursions by the People's Liberation Army. Parton stressed another factor, China's increased focus over the disputed Scarborough Shoal.
And we're just seeing an increasing sort of aggressive stance, increasing nationalism, propaganda about it. And that I think makes the risk of an incident, a collision between ships, or like the 2001 where two aircraft collided, just a little bit more likely.
The CCP last year said that, quote, China will take all necessary measures to safeguard its sovereignty, rights and interests in the South China Sea. The HMS Queen Elizabeth will set sail in May from Portsmouth. Lorraine Ferrier, NTD News.
Still to come, the United States Postal Service asks Congress for help. It's trying to overcome years of financial problems. And find out how much big tech workers donated to President Biden's 2020 campaign. We'll have answers for you after the break.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled, and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
GameStop shares more than doubled on Wednesday, closed at over $90. It comes after an executive shakeup. The company says Chief Financial Officer Jim Bell will resign March 26th. The company hinted the move is to help transform the company into an online retailer. Co-founder of Chewy, Ryan Cohen, recently bought a stake in GameStop, and he's pushing for the transformation to online. The company announced last fall it was planning on closing up to 450 stores around the world. In the most recent quarter, it posted a net loss of $18.8 million. Still, some investors remain hopeful that it can cut reliance on physical stores and transition to e-commerce. And in other news, big tech workers donated more than $15 million to President Biden's 2020 campaign. That's much more than what people in banking and legal sectors gave. NTD's Patrick Hayden reports.
Employees from Google's Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple and Facebook donated more than $15 million to President Biden's 2020 presidential campaign. This marks a shift in contributions compared to previous Democrat runners. Big tech made up 3 of the top 5 for Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign, but injury law firm Morgan & Morgan and investment bank JP Morgan Chase were in there as well. And in Obama's second campaign, 2 big tech companies made the top 5 along with Deloitte, Time Warner and law firm DLA Piper. Corporations themselves can't give directly to election campaigns, but their employees can. A Wall Street Journal analysis of Biden's 2020 campaign shows that big tech accounted for all 5 of his top donors. Alphabet employees donated over $5.2 million. Microsoft employees, $3.2 million. Amazon employees, $2.8 million. Apple employees, nearly $2 million. And Facebook employees, about $1.9 million. Big tech didn't make it into any of Trump's top 5 donors in 2020. Republicans have long complained that big tech companies are biased against conservatives. Globally, big tech is facing scrutiny from many countries' regulators. And in the US, several are already targets of antitrust investigations. 3 CEOs will testify before a House committee next month. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
The Postmaster General told Congress today that the mail system is losing $10 billion a year. He says it urgently needs reform and financial relief.
The years of financial stress, underinvestment, unachievable service standards, and lack of operational precision have resulted in a system that does not have adequate resiliency to adjust and adapt to changing circumstances.
He suggested they're in a death spiral. His words, the Postal Service is projected to lose $160 billion over the next decade. One of the underlying issues is a 2006 law. It made the Postal Service pre-fund over $120 billion in retiree health care and pension costs. One lawmaker proposed a reform bill to deal with those issues. DeJoy said the bill alone isn't going to solve the problem. He plans to release a new 10-year strategic break-even plan soon. And coming up, the UK National Health Service is withdrawing over 1 million high-grade masks made in China over safety concerns. And the increasing demand for pets triggers a surge in illegal dog trading between Eastern Europe and Germany. Find out more after the break.
It's just clear as day. The media, whether it's broadcast, cable, or print media, has become extremely biased. And I started looking online for alternative ways to get information. And I saw an ad for a free trial. And I looked at it and I said, Epoch Times. I mean, come on, this is end of days type of stuff. I mean, what are they going to be talking about here? And I said, well, it's a free trial. Let me dig in. Is it giving me both sides? Is it giving me an objective point of view here? I have looked for opportunities to see where they might be biased, and I don't find it. It has given me a level of trust in media that I didn't think I'd ever get back. I love the Epoch Times because it has renewed my faith in the idea that a reliable, responsible, non-biased source of information is available. And I can say that I love it because of that.
And staying in the UK, the National Health Service is withdrawing over 1 million high-grade masks made in China over safety concerns. NTD's Marianne Leatham has more.
The National Health Service's central alerting system sent out the notice on February 18th and asks hospitals and care homes to take immediate action. The notice says the Fangtian FFP3 masks may not meet the Department of Health's essential technical specification. While the investigation is going on, hospitals and care homes should stop using the masks. FFP3 masks are marketed as 99% effective against airborne infectious diseases. According to an NHS website, FFP3 masks are used when medical staff need to carry out potentially infectious aerosol-generating procedures. For example, when a patient is known or suspected to have the CCP virus. The NHS's notice also says it's seeking to confirm the origin of manufacture. The manufacturer, Suzhou Fangtian Industries, tells the BBC it has never supplied the firm listed in the alert. Marianne Leatham, NTD News.
As the demand for pets surges during the era of the home office, so is the illegal dog trade from Eastern Europe into Germany. Emily Wither reports.
The dogs here are being sold by an illegal trader. As the demand for furry companions rises while Germans are told to work from home, so is the illegal dog trade from Eastern Europe into the country. Carsten Plucker runs a dog shelter and says the surge in demand for pets is putting an extra burden on shelters.
There have been mafia-style goings-on in the puppy trade for a long time now. Large gangs bring the dogs into Germany from Eastern Europe to sell them here. And on top of this are now private individuals who bring dogs in from Eastern Europe and are also selling them here.
He explains it's the shelters who are often carrying the costs for treatment and quarantining of any illegal dogs found. Plucker warns the black market trade is not only damaging to the dogs, but can create unforeseen costs for unsuspecting buyers, who may end up with hefty vet bills for dogs with hidden illnesses. Prices for certain dogs have also risen significantly, with Dachshunds going for €3,000 in some cases compared with €1,000 a year ago. Animal welfare groups are urging Germans to make sure that they are buying from a trusted source. They have also issued a plea that a dog is for life, not just for lockdown.
And coming up, an escaped sheep in Australia gets sheared, producing a whopping 75-pound fleece. And a puppy born with 6 legs. Veterinarians call her a miracle. Find out more after the break. Rescuers find a sheep that escaped in a forest in Australia. After an extensive haircut, the woolly mutton yields a fleece weighing more than 75 pounds.
Rescuers from Edgar's Mission Farm Sanctuary found the sheep north of Melbourne, according to the mission's Kyle Barron. They call him Barack. Barron says he can tell Barack was once owned because he had been ear tagged at one time. Barron says sheep need to be shorn at least annually, otherwise the fleece continues to grow and grow. Barron says Barack was in a bad way when he was found. The sheep was barely recognizable under his matted fleece. He was underweight and could barely see with all of the wool covering his face. After his haircut, he looks like a sheep again, and he is fitting in with the others. Barron says Barack is now settling in with other rescued sheep at Edgar's Mission. He adds, it all goes to show what incredibly resilient and brave animals sheep really are.
They say every day is a miracle, and that's especially true for this little pup in Oklahoma who's thriving despite being born with 2 extra legs and an extra tail. Say hello to Skipper. She's also has 2 pelvic areas, 2 urinary tracts, and 2 reproductive regions. Neal Veterinary Hospital calls her a miracle. They say the pup's condition is the result of a fertilized egg trying to split but not fully separating. The hospital says she might need physical therapy as she gets older, but for now she's back home with her human parents, nursing well and growing strong. And keepers at Australia's Taronga Zoo share news of a special marsupial milestone. Sydney's first koala joey in over a year has finally emerged from his mother's pouch. Zoo officials announced the good news on Wednesday. The baby koala, named Humphrey, is estimated to be around 8 months old. He was born back in May or June and has spent months growing in the safety of his mother's pouch. Senior koala keeper Laura Jones says that Humphrey is already trying to eat eucalyptus leaves and hanging on tight to his mom's back. Koala joeys typically stay in their mother's pouches for up to 6 months before they begin to emerge and attach themselves to their mom's backs. And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.